Yo! Yo! Oh. Hey! What are you doing? What is your problem? No! Whoa! Hey!
As a child, that's usually kind of one of the first kind of feelings of freedom you get when you get to ride a bike around your neighborhood. I'd never really experienced winter before, never thought I'd be, enjoying winter or getting out there on a bike. It's like a perfect storm of like, I'm late, I forgot stuff, I need to get going, the weather's terrible. Everyone else has also decided to drive today. It's a great vision, but we need more teeth in that. We need some vision action. Our air quality issues, we really need to take action because it's not healthy. Develops this kind of spidey sense or bikey sense, like, you kind of know, like, oh, you're gonna kind of do, oh, yep, you're gonna do it, And there are times when I'm like, how can people, especially when it's directed around kids or whatever, I'm like, how can people think that way?
Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me here at We Are Mentally United podcast. I'm extremely grateful that we got to connect and we got to arrange this podcast recording. Your work, the work that you have been doing within the community of Colorado along bike advocacy has been really inspiring for me. I've been following your work for a couple of years now, and it's like really motivational and really inspiring. And I'm really grateful to have you here.
Well, I'm pleased to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an important topic, and I think it's a big part of what I do and why I do it.
Definitely, for sure. And that's what the aim is today, also for this conversation, to touch around areas of what inspired you to do this advocacy, what work you are doing, and how the younger generation can find different opportunities to inspire themselves to advocate for different important topics in within their communities. Because community building is a big aspect of mental health, and keeping our communities healthy it's extremely important for a healthier future of tomorrow. So to get things started, can you share a little bit about yourself, about your background for the listeners and for the viewers who might not be familiar with you and your work?
Sure. Well, it's been a kind of circuitous route to get here. I rode my bike a lot as a youngster, as many people my age did, and found it very freeing. But kind of as I got older, especially with kids, fell out of that. And I think a part of me always missed that. And when my kids were a little bit bigger, I started taking it up again and just riding as much as I could and just realizing all the physical and mental and community benefits that afforded. And once you see that and how powerful and how positive those changes can be, it's really hard not to get more involved and want to kind of give that message to others so they can have those opportunities as well. So I've become a crossing guard at my children's old school. I've organized rides. We advocate for safer streets for people, for getting more bikes and e-bikes out there and affordable for others. So it takes a lot of different little routes, but it's all kind of going back to just giving people options to get out of a car, which helps everyone, even people who still have to drive.
Definitely. And you mentioned something about that you were really passionate around biking when you were a younger kid. Uh, as you were growing up, was there, and when you were in college and when you were in university, did you ever thought that this would be something that you would be doing up in the long-term future?
Absolutely not. As a child, that's usually kind of one of the first kind of feelings of freedom you get when you get to ride a bike around your neighborhood. But then, then the cars come in, and that's what is important, driving. And it's really hard once you kind of buy into that cars are freedom, and then you kind of choose where you're going to live, where you're going to work, where you're going to shop, all based on getting there by a car. You pretty much become rooted in that decision making. It's very hard to change that. So it's one of those things that I think it's really difficult for a lot of people to kind of make those changes, to see those options where they have them. So it's yeah, I never expected to be here, but I'm really glad I am.
No, definitely. We are also really glad that you're here because you're doing such great work for the community. How difficult was it for you personally in terms of making up that switch from, as you said, like, the car journey towards the bike journey? Because I know that a lot of work that you do within your daily life, you do it with your bike rather than commuting or doing it with your car.
Yeah. Well, I think it was easier for me than a lot of people, just because even when I did drive everywhere, I didn't like driving. I never enjoyed it. I always saw it as something that was pretty dangerous and stressful. So I pretty much, kind of organized my life around not having to drive very much. So like, when we first moved to Denver, we lived in a very tiny little house, 4 of us, and we made some sacrifices, but it meant that we were within walking distance to the kids' school. We were also right on the bus line, so we were able to get away with 1 car for our family. So if I needed the car, my husband could take the bus to work. If he needed the car, then I could walk the kids to school and after stuff, after activities. But so I think as far as like general population, I think it was a little bit easier for me just because I was living in somewhat of a smaller bubble. I mean, there were some changes I had to make, like, when you're choosing a doctor, I want to keep in mind now, like, can I bike there? Is it, is not so much the distance, but is it a safe route? So once you start making those choices, it becomes a little bit easier because you kind of know the things to ask yourself and to kind of organize things around.
Like now, currently, what are some of the things that you do on your bike, or what are some of the like what are some of the things that other people might not be doing on their bikes or might not think it's possible to on the bikes, but you do
Right.
it?
Well, and I think it obviously doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. For me, it's pretty much, I'm almost all. I did drive earlier this week. I had some stuff out of town that I had to do. So jumped in the car. Okay, we know we got to do this to get it done. But for most people, it doesn't have to be like I have to leave my car at home every day. If you can go visit a friend and they're within biking distance, and do that. If you can go to a doctor's appointment and they're within distance, grocery stores. There's there's a lot of ways that even basic bikes can hold a lot of groceries. Get a rear rack with panniers or a basket or a backpack even. So doing little things like that, it's like baby steps, like, let me see how I can get here. Oh, that was pretty easy. I wonder if I can go a little bit further or go somewhere else. And a lot of times that's what it takes. Like I do a lot of that with friends and neighbors, kind of taking them on bike rides, even, letting them borrow one of my e-bikes to make them realize how easy it can be, and taking that route with them. So you can, actually physically see that it's possible, and that it's not nearly as difficult as you think it is many times, if you know the right ways to choose to get to where you're going. So it's all about like taking those little steps, getting comfortable. It's not like, okay, tomorrow you got to give up your car and you're going to bike everywhere. It's just see what works for you, and see what's possible. And I think most people see how enjoyable it is, and that fact that it doesn't usually take much more time than driving when you have to, drive around looking for a parking spot, or, there's a lot of benefits too. And it's possible for a lot of trips that most people take every day.
I feel like it's more like if you're making the transition from a car to a bike, it's first of all, it's more like minimizing the use rather than completely ending the use kind of a thing.
Mhm.
You can do the small trips, do the small
Okay.
grocery trips, small restaurant trips, fast food trips that you usually take your car out for. You can do that on a bike, and then slowly and gradually you can grow up from there if that's the transition I feel like you're planning on making. And um, one thing I've seen it on your Twitter account or X account that I really found really intriguing and really interesting was how you ride in snowfall and when it's snowing around. Because that's one time, because I love biking myself, but that's one time that I'm really fearful for it. Because of the ice, sometimes the
Mm.
drivers on the car drivers on the road are not being too careful enough. But then I see your account and
Mhm.
you're going grocery shopping, you're
Right.
dropping your kids off, or you're doing some mail
Yeah.
stuff that you had to do, or other errands. How difficult is that, and how do you manage that?
Well, that's definitely something I never saw. I mean, I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'd never really experienced winter before, never thought I'd be, enjoying winter or getting out there on a bike. But I did start within the last few years going like, okay, once you're biking everywhere, you want to continue that. So you're
Hmm.
kind of keep pushing that limit, like to see what I can do. And I did get another kind of a shareable e-bike a couple of years ago with the Denver Rebate, which allowed, like, when my kids come home, they can use it. Everyone in our family can use it. I can use it for friends, taking them on rides. But one of the benefits of it is it has much smaller tires. It has a lower center of gravity, a little bit wider tires. So it actually does really, really well in the snow. I mean, this year I actually haven't, there hasn't been a single day where I had to go out and I wasn't able to, bike. But last year, I think there was only 2 or 3 days when I went like, the roads are a little tough. And you get to start to know the conditions of the snow, like this snow is okay to bike in and this snow is not. So but it's fun. I don't really ski anymore just because the hassle of driving to the mountains. And it's just, it's a lot, but I find like it's my kind of skiing time, like they can kind of tell the conditions. Oh, it's pack powder day. I get to ride in this. And it's actually kind of fun. I mean, you do have to be a little bit more careful. And as you said, like the drivers tend to be the worst part of it all. Just because people are maybe going too fast to be able to stop
Hmm.
easily or safely. But yeah, it's really doable. I'd say it's easier with certain types of bikes than others. And sometimes I will go around around a corner with my legs kind of straight out just to kind of help me balance, but just in case you hit a slippery spot. But yeah, it's not as hard as you think it is. It looks
It
horrible.
looks really hard. It looks really hard.
And then, I'm sure you've seen like my helmet. I have a little helmet with like a face shield on it. So it helps kind of keep the snow out of your eyes. Or you can, if you do ski, you can wear your stuff that you ski in to go biking. So just, lower that seat a little bit to kind of be able to put your feet out. And it's actually kind of fun. I never thought I'd be saying that, but it is.
It looks really exciting. It looks really fun. It looks really exciting, but then it's also like nerve-wracking kind of a thing for someone who's watching it on their phone.
Yeah. But it is,
Um,
it's one of those like take the baby steps, see if you can go in your neighborhood and do it and how it feels. And you get to start to know like where you have to be careful and what's okay. So it's one of those things you just kind of experiment with it and go, oh, okay, I could do this.
yeah. Would you say you have a personality where you like to challenge yourself with these things also, in a way, to see if you can do it?
I think so, especially if it's something that you enjoy, and especially, when you're my age, I think it's important to always be challenging yourself to go like, okay, what can I do? In fact, that was last year, I think it was last winter, we had a day that it was 11 below and it had just snowed. I was like,
Hmm.
I don't need to go anywhere, but I'm going to bundle up and I'm going to go out and see if I can do this. And the cold was fine. Like I just bundled up. The one thing is at 11 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, snow does not pack. So it was like riding on dry snow. So you did not
Hmm.
have much traction. So I did not go far, but I just kind of did it to see, could I do it? Like, yeah, I can do this,
For sure. And like for someone like me who does not know a lot about the differences of snow, uh, how would you say like what snow is good to ride a bike in or try to ride a bike in, and what snow is not? Like how can anyone who does not have a lot of knowledge about it differentiate and find it out?
Sure, I think it's slush is kind of difficult because you're going to be slipping around. That hard pack powder is usually perfectly fine for traction. It's like anything. You don't want to stop fast or start fast or make turns fast. But if it's a packed snow, it's actually okay. Like I said, thicker tires work, but you don't have to have like super fat tires. But wider tires rather than thin tires are generally a little bit better. But I mean, I think most people could make it work, and it's going to be that experiment. Just like people learn how to drive in snow. You've got to kind of go out there, maybe to a parking lot, and see how your car responds. It's the same thing with a bike. Just kind of see what's possible. Like, okay, well, I really got to slow down here, or a lot of times the intersections are a little bit more difficult because you've got ruts going both ways. I've also found that like the sun makes a big difference. Not only in the texture of the snow, but being able to see those variations when it's really cloudy.
Mhm.
Sometimes the white you can't see the bumps and little dips that you kind of need to be able to see. So you just have to take it a little bit slower depending on the conditions.
For sure. And I feel like one thing good about Denver is that, or Colorado, is that the snow melts out very fast. Like the
Yeah.
roads get dried out really fast because before moving to Colorado, I was studying in upstate New York and it would snow there 8 to 9 months a year.
Yeah. And then just
And
stay.
it just stays there. It's like it's a white wallpaper kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It just sticks there and stays there. So over there, it gets a lot icy. It gets a lot difficult. The conditions get a lot difficult. But over here, I feel like in Colorado, it's
Yeah.
the sun helps us a lot.
Yeah, and it depends on like the east-west streets versus the north-south streets. Like, the north-south streets get a lot more sun. And so those are going to be clearer ones. The east-west streets kind of tend to be more shaded. So
Mm.
those are the streets that you might have a little trouble on. And there's a lot of times when I know like, okay, I'm going to be able to bike this morning before the sun comes out. Once the sun comes out, everything starts getting slushy, and I'll probably have to walk or drive or take a bus to get to where I'm going. So it's one of those things like once you do it, you start realizing like, okay, this is okay now, but later it might not be okay. But
But that's
yeah,
good. Like you're staying in touch with the nature. You're keeping track of the nature
exactly.
of how it's happening because I feel like people who drive or people who do not use this as a commute, they usually are not aware about it, and a lot of
Right.
things come to them as a big surprise.
Yeah. Well, and it's one thing too, like, when you get a car and you have all these sunk costs associated with getting a car, a lot of times you don't think about travel options. It's just you default to driving. And I think that's a good first step for a lot of people. Is just ask every time you have an errand to run or going to go out somewhere, go, how am I going to get there? Even if like when you start off, 100% of it is I'm going to drive. Maybe, all of a sudden you decide, okay, maybe I'm going to walk. Maybe I'm going to take the bus. Maybe I'm going to ride my bike. But it's like forcing yourself to think about your options rather than just defaulting. This is how I've always done it. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to drive. Even if it's half a mile away, it becomes just habit. So it's a part of breaking that habit that can kind of allow you to take a different step occasionally.
Definitely. I feel like, yeah, baby steps towards it, it's really important. And I work as a therapist in the community, and a lot of my caseload that I work with are younger children. And I always encourage their parents all the time to let them bike to school, to let them walk to school, because it's really important to be out there in the nature, to be outside and to experience and to like, let the sun hit you and stuff. So you also work as a crossing guard as a crossing guard position at a Denver public school. How is that experience like? What do you see in your everyday routine over there?
Well, yeah, and that's something I never thought I'd be doing either. But when I was involved with Safe Street Advocacy, and a friend mentioned that the school that my kids went to no longer had a crossing guard, I just thought, oh, and I should maybe do this. And I had a friend who was also just this rock star crossing guard. who inspired me. And I thought, okay, I can do this, I guess. You know, it was very surprising how challenging, but yet how rewarding a position it can be. And it's been incredibly educational for me too. You know, I have a lot of traffic cones that I use to keep people from parking too close to intersections, which retains visibility, which is so important. And then I decided I could start using those cones to actually direct the traffic and force little curves, which are called chicanes, that slow drivers down to visually kind of reduce the width of the lanes too, which cues to your brain that you have to kind of slow down and be cautious. So I just like, oh, this works. Let me do this. And it just started kind of snowballing from there. And we've really done pretty great things around our school. And I think everyone appreciates it and sees, you know, at first all these cones started showing up and I think people thought, what the heck is she doing? You know, and I confused some people, but now it's, I think everyone really kind of understands what I'm doing, and it really slows down. It helps everyone. It helps the kids get across the street. It helps the drivers even, because no one wants to hit a kid or come close to hitting a kid. You know, it's horribly scary. So this just kind of, you know, I think reduces everyone's anxiety in the area. You know, just like, slow down. We're going to take a breath. We're all going to go when it's safe to go. And I think it works for everyone.
No, I think it's one of the most challenging and one of the most difficult positions to be in, especially in the morning and especially in the afternoon, both the times, because in the morning, everyone just wants to drop their kids off and get to work kind of a thing. So everyone's in a rush. Because I've worked as a therapist at schools also, and all the parents are in such a rush, either to drop the kids off or to make sure the kids are on time, to make sure they get to their job on time. And in the afternoon, it's a completely different thing, because then it's they're all rushing to pick their kids up at the
Yeah,
same time. And then it's like, okay, I have to pick my kid, drop them back at home, get back to my work. Because a lot of these parents are single parents
sure.
also. So they're also struggling and navigating a lot of different challenges. So it's a really stressful and challenging job. Do you ever feel it that way? Do you ever see the tension or people honking at each other and just not being mindful enough
Yeah.
that this is a school area?
I think anyone who does, and you know, even the paras who kind of volunteered to do this, anyone who does it for more than a couple of days will see that kind of rush and that madness that kind of goes around. I think we've reduced that a lot around the school. Again, like I think now that people understand what I'm doing, it's a little bit like, okay, this is fine. I'm going to get through when I get through. You know, she's going to tell me when it's safe. But yeah, it tends to be like the days of the worst, like no weather is bad, right? But like the days that it's the coldest, the snowiest, everyone's late because, you know, they forgot their mittens or the glove. Like it's just like a perfect storm of like, I'm late, I forgot stuff, I need to get going, the weather's terrible. Everyone else has also decided to drive today, which
Mhm.
means that there's more traffic. And so now I'm even later. And so, yeah, you can kind of see that tension build. So, but now that I know that, I can prepare. I'm like, okay, today's going to be a tough one.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think a lot of people too, one of the benefits of my cones and everything is I think a lot of people now decide that they're going to park a block or two away and just walk the rest of the way. If they can't walk the whole way from their home, I think that's a great compromise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it really kind of it allows you to get a little bit of that physical activity before school, which is great for kids, great for parents too. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
that little time that you get to connect, to talk. And you know, not everyone can, you know, lives close enough that they can walk or bike. So it's a nice little compromise. And you know, who knows, maybe it will lead to that. Okay, well, we have so much fun walking a block or two away. Maybe we can do it further or ride our bikes. So we try to make sure like it's as easy as possible to walk and bike to get to school. Not saying that we want to hurt drivers, but like we need to make sure we prioritize the kind of traffic that we want to see around our school. We still make it possible to drive. I think it's still fairly easy to drive to school, but you might have to wait a little bit longer and slow down a little bit more, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like automatically, if more people decide to walk, or more people, especially the people who just live a block or 2 blocks away, if they decide to walk, if they decide to, like, as you said, like, it's not just for the kids, it's for them as well. It's physical activity, it's a physical exercise. And when you're driving, you're not in a headspace of listening to what your kid is saying. And of course, it's like your kid should also not be distracting you at that time too. So, but
Right.
when you're walking, you can have that bonding experience. But I feel like if more people try and do this, it's gonna just lessen up the traffic and just like make things smoother for everyone.
It does. It benefits everyone. So I mean, the more people you have walking and biking, the fewer cars you have come through. So it even benefits the drivers. So it's definitely it's a win-win situation. And I see all the time, like the kids stop and show me what they've picked up on their way to school. Like, they found this like bug, or they found this little piece of treasure or whatever on the road. So it's a nice, way to connect with your community. It's a great way to start or end the day. That little bit of kind of walk and talk. It's beneficial in a multitude of ways.
Definitely, and it brings a lot of mental health benefits. Within your experience yourself in your personal life, have you seen any mental health or wellness benefits from the biking that you have done?
Absolutely. It's probably the most surprising, but the most beneficial part of it all. As a child, I was diagnosed with scoliosis, curvature of the spine. It was already pretty far gone. They tried
Mhm.
to um, kind of fix it with a few different unproven techniques, which are no longer used. But the electrodes that I had to sleep with to kind of move my spine back into shape
Mhm.
ended up burning holes through my back. And so surgery became necessary. Having back surgery when you're 13 is tough.
Mhm.
Spending months in a full body cast when you're 13, getting the sort of attention that you don't want. I think that it was a struggle growing up, not to mention the physical pain that came along with it. So I think I developed also an anxiety around going to doctors and doctor's appointment, anything kind of medical, because of what I had gone through at it's such a tough age.
Mhm.
Not that, the going through that kind of stuff is easy for anyone, but like 13 is a tough time to be going through that.
Definitely.
Um, but it's really like generally it's helped my mental health, just kind of reduced anxiety and stress. Not just because of the physical activity, but like I said, I always found driving very stressful. So that not only eliminates the stress, but like helps with other things. When I'm going to a doctor's appointment, that was always a time when I would get anxious, like just kind of knowing that I had anxiety around that. But now that I'm able to bike to most of my appointments, I think just about every one of my doctors lives in a bikeable distance. I'm able to kind of get a little physical exercise, enjoy the day, alleviate a little bit of that anxiety, stress, to get there. And so I'm in a much better mood. I'm less stressed. It's been there's just so many different ways that it has biking and active mobility has helped in that regard. I think everyone who knows me and my kids would say that I'm not a very relaxed driver. Like I'm not my best person, my best self
Mhm.
when I'm behind the wheel. Like it's stressful. And you get into that like adversarial position with other drivers. There's just something innate about like being in this, isolation chamber with all these other people in isolation chambers, trying to move as fast and as quickly as possible, and seeing everyone else as kind of an obstacle, that is all kind of removed when you can not, when you don't have to drive somewhere, and you're much more connected to your community and in a much better space when you can kind of walk or bike somewhere. So yeah, I could go on and on and on about the benefits of it. And I've seen it in other people too. It's like when you see it in yourself, you want to share it. And so I know other people have come to the same conclusion. Like, yeah, this is a great way. And you don't have to organize time to go to a gym or anything, you know, like drive to a gym, work at a gym, drive home, you know, it's like I'm getting my physical activity just by going from point A to point B. And it's a little bit throughout the day, which I think is the healthiest kind of way to do that. You're not like, you know, like having this high impact, you know, forceful kind of exercise. It's just kind of a nice, relaxing way to kind of get your daily steps or daily rotations in.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Like you're a really, really, really strong person. Not just because of overcoming the challenges that you went through, but also identifying and navigating up with those challenges and finding up different ways in how you can navigate and live through those difficult challenges. So that really takes a very strong personality, and you definitely have that. Which brings me up towards the next topic of our conversation, which is around your advocacy work, because there is so much work that you are doing within the community. And I'm just going to read through some of the statistics that I have up over here, which are around the deaths of people who lost their lives in Colorado and across US. So in 2022, which is 2 years ago, there were 764 deaths that took place because of car accidents or car mishaps in Colorado. In 2023, those numbers dropped a little bit, but they were still pretty high at 720. In US, throughout the US, in 2022, 42,514 people lost their lives because of this avoidable incidents and things that could be fixed up within their communities. And then again in 2023, around 40,990 people lost their lives.
Yeah.
And these are all, if not all, majority of these are preventable deaths because these could be avoided through better laws, through better advocacy, and through more awareness around who should be on the road and who should not be on the road. Can you share and shine a little bit light around the work that you have been doing within the community and what brought you towards doing this work, and what are some of the dangers that you yourself have seen within the community and across the country?
Yeah, again, you hear those numbers and it's hard to not want to be like, oh, this is horrible. We have to change this. And there are, you know, like you said, they are preventable if we kind of had the political will to make these changes that are needed. A big part of that is infrastructure changes. You know, we've spent the last century really prioritizing car movement, and, you know, like making sure you can get from point A to point B as fast and as quickly as, you know, quickly as possible, and you have every place to park. And that has really come at a high cost to all other modes of transportation. We fund car infrastructure at about 80% of our funding. The remaining 20% goes to transit, walking, biking. So we get the scraps. So it's no wonder that people choose to drive, and that those modes of transportation aren't nearly as attractive or safe, because we really haven't funded and looked at those as a true priority. And a lot of that too is land use. So when you have to make sure everyone can drive and park everywhere they go, then guess what you end up with? This is a lot of streets and a lot of parking lots, which are not very friendly for any other mode of travel. So if, a lot of times that I will ride a place, and the streets are generally, I tend to stay on small side streets without a lot of traffic, but then, you get to where you're going and it's a gigantic parking lot, which, has tons of people just trying to like find a spot and make sure they get the spot before the next person gets. So it can be like just those few
It's literally
yards.
musical chairs, like
Oh, it
parking lots
is.
are
And
like literally like musical chairs.
it's a challenge, and everyone's just like, I gotta get the best spot. But those that, I can ride for miles, and then that last bit of being in the parking lot can be the most dangerous, just because you've got people only looking to find a parking spot, or it's bizarre. And you just realize like how much it actually adds to distance. I mean, people think of cars as like being a way to shorten distances between places, right? But it really increases those distances when you have to
Mm-hmm.
plan your world around everyone driving and parking everywhere. So there's a lot of changes that can be made, including better land use, higher density. But a lot of people fight that because they worry about traffic and parking. But what people don't understand when you're constantly in that car mindset is that, when things are closer together, you don't need to drive for as many things, especially if you have good public transit, good safe bike infrastructure and sidewalks for everyone to get around. There's so many things that we can do and that we should be doing, because every one of those 43,000 people who died, and those are numbers that are on our public streets. If you add in private space like parking lots and driveways, you're getting closer to 45,000 people every year who've died horrible preventable deaths, and a lot, children dying, elderly dying, who are much more susceptible to these crashes. We're in this trend of just bigger and bigger and heavier vehicles on our roads, because it's like an arms race. Everyone kind of feels like they need to be safe by having the biggest vehicle, and it's just, there's no stop to it. So there's a lot of things that we can do. They won't be easy. They will require a lot of political will and push from us, the advocacy, and as advocates, and others who have just said, enough. This is unacceptable, and we need to change, because people are not going to choose to walk and bike if they don't feel safe doing it. And it really helps all of us, even the people who still must drive would benefit from having more people choose to walk and bike and take public transit.
Definitely. And I feel like one of the things that I saw in America that I feel like could really benefit and could really fix a lot of problems is better public transport and better statewide travel. I feel like it's traveling within states is really difficult. You either
Yeah.
fly or you drive, because taking a train, Amtrak is there, but taking that Amtrak from, let's say, from here to Los Angeles, it doesn't make sense, because if you have a car, you'd rather drive there, kind of a thing, or you'd rather fly there.
Mhm.
Whereas in Europe and in other parts of the world, these things, that traveling within countries or traveling within longer distances, it's much more easier through good public transits or good state transits that you can call them. Do you feel the same?
Oh, absolutely. People are going to do what they're comfortable doing, what's easiest and quickest. We've looked at taking the train. My daughter lives in San Luis Obispo, California, which isn't really all that far. I mean, a train could get you there, and a good, a nice high-speed rail could get you there and pretty quickly. But we don't fund that, and even, there are trains that go there, but they're going to take quite a bit longer,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times are just as expensive, if not more expensive. So why would people choose to do that if that's not kind of what we're promoting? Small flights should be much more expensive, and fund public fund trains to get there, because it's such an easier, less damaging way to get there. It's really, when you think about too the land use of the parking lots and the airports, it's just, it's a day-long thing just to go on a small trip. People don't realize when you add in all the time that you have to spend, like getting to the airport, getting through security, waiting on the tarmac, and then doing the opposite the way back. It's not very quick. Like a 2.5 hour flight can take 10 hours when you add all that into it. So yeah, I think if we had much better trains, buses that could kind of make up for those short local flights, we'd all be better off. It's again, but it comes down to priorities.
Well, one of the things I feel like that the state governments can do on local levels is bring in interesting and motivational initiatives that promote more of public transport. Because one thing that I personally really accessed and used a lot for the last 2 years, or have been using for the last 2 years in Colorado, has been in the summer, the Colorado government or the Denver government basically initiates free rides on bus and train for anyone who is riding it from within the city or throughout the city or to the airport and back. And I feel like that's a very, very, very good initiative and an example of a very good initiative that should be promoted more because because I commute a lot within the public transport because I personally don't have a car. And during those periods of time, I saw a lot of other people also joining up in the public transport. So a lot of other people who might have had cars were also utilizing this transport. And I just feel like it's like initiatives like these are really important in within state governments or within city governments.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it inspires more people to give it a try. Like if
Hmm.
you don't, it's not even so much the cost of the rides a lot of times. It's the actual process of getting a ticket and knowing where like that can kind of create a challenge. So just being able to sit, like hop on a train or a bus and go where and see where, like let's see how easy this is. It can lead to more people using transit down the road. Like, again, it's removing those barriers, like going, okay, try this, see if it works. I mean, even if we never end up with free public transportation, I mean, I think most people would prefer like kind of reasonably priced public transit. If it arrived quickly, talking about, short headways, actually went to where you were going, even if it's not free, if it's easy, you're not going to be spending, 40 minutes waiting for your bus or, have to go through a hassle of figuring out where you need to go. It can really help. And even if you have a car, there are times when you don't want to deal with parking. If you're going downtown to a show, and you're going to have to wait in line and pay a lot of money for parking, why not just jump on a bus or a train and give it a try? And I think those sort of initiatives with the free fare make those kind of happening, things happen more frequently and easily. And maybe then people decide, okay, that wasn't too bad. Let me try that again.
That's exactly what I did when last year when Taylor Swift came here to perform in Denver.
Mhm.
So me and my friends, we rather than driving there, we just got into a bus because we were like, it's going to be extremely difficult to get back from the stadium, and we just hopped onto the bus. And it was in July, so it was during that time when the bus rides were free. And my friends who had their cars, they were just so pleasantly surprised. They were like, "Wow, we never thought we'd be riding in a bus for free." And it just came up like a good experience for them too, just to like, try it out because we could have taken an Uber that day,
Mhm.
but we chose not to because the
Yeah.
bus ride was for free.
Yeah, and that's why like having these experiences is so important, right? Because it does kind of expand your options. So next time your friends are going to a game or something, that might be something they think about. Oh, that was actually pretty easy. And yeah, and it can be a fun social event too. I mean, like I've had some great conversations on buses with people who, people I may have never met before, or any other circumstances, but like had a nice conversation with someone who used to live in Albany and New York where I lived. And so we got to talk about different things from Albany, like
Hmm.
little connections with your community.
It's community
I think,
connection.
yeah, exactly. It's a nice part of life that I think a lot of people are missing by kind of just driving everywhere, is these, experiences that you're out in your community, you're all kind of in it together, you're getting to where you're going and trying to do it safe and pleasantly. And it's a nice break.
Definitely, and which is why I feel like your work is just so inspiring because you're actually advocating for these resources to be made more available and accessible. Can you share a little bit more about your advocacy work and the groups and organizations that you have been part of or have been working with?
Sure. Well, think that the main group that I work with is Denver Bicycle Lobby. And we're just a group of people who just kind of want to see, our streets safer and more people out riding bikes because it's fun and enjoyable. And, we want more people to have that option. So we do some fun stuff. We went and grabbed a beer on Earth Day on Monday at Odell's Brewery, who was having kind of a special pour day, and we sat out on car-free Larimer and connected, enjoyed ourselves, talking different things, anything from silly stuff or just, with bikes and to real hardline policy stuff that needs to be happening in Denver. So it's a little bit of everything. And I think it's also a great way to kind of connect with others in a similar mind space, and just kind of, run different ideas off of people, kind of collaborate. Some people know other connections that, you can get in touch with. It's been a great way to kind of feel like you're making a difference in your community, because, it is hard for one person alone to kind of make a difference. But when you're doing it with others who, maybe have more experience in some regards, and others who have different experience in others, you can kind of really come together and make an impact. And then, I do some volunteering with Bicycle Colorado and Denver Streets Partnership, just gathering signatures for Denver Deserves Sidewalks, to make sure that all of Denver eventually has sidewalks, which is not something, I think 40% of our streets don't have adequate sidewalks, that not either, completely not there, or not ADA compliant, which can really make a big difference in someone's ability and desire to walk places. And it's, pedestrian infrastructure is kind of like that basic foundation of active mobility, of transportation in general. Every one of us is a pedestrian at one point or another. So it's very important to make sure that's an option for people. I also did some of my first advocacy work when I came back from Amsterdam, and decided, I love this so much, but I'm not going to be moving to Amsterdam. But how can I take a little bit of that? And that's how I, had my Twitter profile, Going Dutch Denver. But I decided, I'm not going to just complain anymore, or go like, oh, I wish, I'm going to come back and kind of see what I can do to help make those changes happen. Excuse me. But it is another part of, like, of taking control of your life, and the power and the mental, health benefits of that too. Like, I'm not just going to complain. I'm going to actually do something and help myself, help others, help my community. It's a great way to spend some time if you have it. I mean, we know a lot of people who would benefit from some of these, improvements in our transportation infrastructure. Don't have that privilege. They're working a couple of jobs. They're trying, they're either, trying to get from point A to B safely on public transit, or biking, walking, and aren't able to get out there and go to the public meetings and do those things. But who could most benefit from some of these improvements?
Definitely. I feel like majority of the people can, probably more than 70-80% of the people can benefit from all these things, because a lot of times people are also fearful of not going out for walks or going out for bike rides, because the roads are not safe enough, because the sideways and the sidewalks are not safe enough, or are not well made enough, kind of a thing. So it really causes up a lot of hindering for them in that regard too. You mentioned that you get signatures and you are part of a community that's advocating. How do you get to communicate this message and relay this message and forward this message up to the government officials or people who are in power and authority? How does that process looks like?
Well, I think getting in touch with any sort of advocacy groups in your location. Here in Denver, again, it's kind of the Denver Bicycle Lobby and Denver Streets Partnership, and following along with their newsletters. A lot of people will let you know when there's some survey it came out, like, let's add your feedback. Let's make sure we get, make sure that it's not just the drivers who are getting the benefits here. We you need to hear from our lawmakers, need to hear from those of us who are getting around on bike and foot and public transit. Make sure we're part of that conversation. going to Safe Street Day at the Capitol, meeting with our representatives and congresspeople to like make sure they know what our priorities are. And we do know that that victims of traffic violence are in large, in a very large percentage people who are of color, children, elderly, and are disproportionately affected by traffic violence. So, they need to have someone looking out for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we know what a terrible cost burden car ownership can be for most people. And alleviating that pressure for people who are struggling to get by is a huge benefit. If we can eliminate the need to pay for car insurance, registration, gas, it alleviates that and makes people have an easier time getting by, especially if we kind of make some of those land use changes where we increase density and allow people to live closer to jobs, and we keep pushing people further and further away from opportunities by not building, that it becomes more and more likely that you're not going to be able to be an active member of the community unless you have a car, and that really should not be the case.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a little bit about Amsterdam, about your visit over there and how that inspired you into making up the Twitter profile and doing the advocacy work that you are doing. What countries do you feel like are currently leading up in the conversation of advocating more for better bike laws or for better public transports in your experience?
Sure. Well, I mean, Netherlands and Denmark are, going to be the top for bike riding, and that's mainly because they give people their own space. Not you're not expecting people, and that's more so with Netherlands than in say like Copenhagen, but just not prioritizing cars is the first step. Not understanding that there are better ways to get around, especially in big cities where cars just take up a lot of space, and that's just not efficient use of space. But I think we've all seen Paris is doing amazing work with Mayor Anne Hidalgo is doing a great job with really pushing for better ways to get around. Bikes are really kind of booming there. We've seen other places in Spain, Seville, that quite a few years ago, the mayor kind of made some changes and biking has massively increased. Barcelona with its super blocks that really kind of prioritize people walking and biking. It's, it can be done. People are showing. I mean, even Amsterdam wasn't the Amsterdam that we know of, just 50 years ago.
Can you talk about some of those things that you noticed or the changes in Amsterdam that you may have seen?
Well, in the 50s, 60s, like everywhere, the cars started taking over, and they were filling in canals, building highways, and really more and more cars were kind of becoming the norm in Amsterdam. And as a result, traffic violence went way up. Kids were dying. The Stop the Kindermoord movement, Stop the Child Murders movement happened, and it was basically a grassroots movement for quite a while. And people just had enough of kids not being safe on their streets anymore, and they pushed back, and they got involved in local government, and they started doing some pretty hardline advocacy work, and made some amazing changes so that Amsterdam has become the city we know it. But the thing is, change is not like a one-time change, right? It's step by step by step, and Amsterdam is still making those steps. I mean, they're still changing. They're starting to reduce the number of streets that cars can be on. They're taking out tons of parking spaces and adding more room for people and bikes. it's an ongoing process, right? You can't go like, okay, we're gonna make this change and then everything is gonna be good from here on out. It's making these little iterative changes, like, okay, this is great, but how can we make it better? And we've seen that, if people feel safe biking and walking and taking public transit, they will. It's not something that's naturally kind of occurring, this car culture. It's just what's been pushed upon us and made the easy option, even though it kind of isn't always easy. But the thought of living without a car can be pretty stressful for some people because they don't feel like they have options. So if we can
Mhm.
give people options, they will take it. We've shown that, and we can do it here.
For sure. And I feel like psychologically also people and humans, when they see other people doing it, and they see it working in a positive way, they automatically get inspired enough to do and themselves, kind of a thing. I feel like today it's, as you said, it's not just stressful, it's also very fearful to live without a car. Like I don't have a car, but a lot of my friends ask me those kinds of questions that, oh, how are you living without
Yeah,
a car? It's easy. It's not too difficult.
yeah,
Like I do take Ubers and Lyfts and stuff, but public transport is also really good. I specifically chose Colorado. One of the reasons for choosing Colorado was the good public transport, or the comparatively better public transport that this state has. I also feel like comparatively from the other eastern states, especially Colorado has much more leniency and much more people biking outside, much more people walking outside, as compared to the other states. I've been mostly on the East Coast. And if you give people options, they will take it. And when they see benefits from it, it automatically inspires them to do that. So I feel like it's a cycle that people are stuck in, but that cycle will soon break out because it's an illusion. It's an illusion that having a car is safer, it's easier. No, you're paying insurances. You count how much money you pay every year or every 5 years. It's a huge amount that could be replaced with Uber rides or transit rides. But again, those options have to be made available and accessible.
yeah. And I think that's one big reason that e-bikes have become so popular and useful, is because we do live in America where everything's kind of spread out more than say places in Europe. And e-bikes, that little bit of power, that pedal assist, can really kind of help people replace car rides. Riding with a full load of groceries on just a regular bike can be a little tiring, or with a couple of kids on the back of your bike. But have a little of that pedal assist, which is just kind of helps you out, get up the hills, even though we don't have too many hills here. We have some. But it makes it removes another one of those barriers that we talked about to making that modal shift, like thinking, okay, well, I can leave my car at home and take my bike to get groceries, to help you, especially when we've got poor air quality days when you're not supposed to be exercising outside. I have some lung issues because of my back issues, and that was one of the things that pushed me towards e-bikes, is because I was out running errands one day on my bike, and the next morning I woke up with full-blown bronchitis and scorched nasal passages, and didn't realize the air quality the day before had been 156 or something. And I was sick for weeks after that, and I realized, okay, like maybe I need a little help with my biking, because now I'm gonna have to like worry. I can't ride my bike now if the air quality's bad. I'm gonna have to probably drive and further worsen the air quality. And that's not something I want to do either. But with an e-bike, I can just kind of bump up the power, and I don't have to kind of work as hard getting where I'm going. And it's really, I went from my bike being maybe 50% of my transportation just a few years ago to being almost 100%
Well,
these days. It really, distances no longer really matter. Weather even, like if it's 100 degrees out, you can still bike places and you get a nice little breeze, and you're not working so hard to get there. So it's definitely, I know a lot of people think e-bikes are cheating, but like for, I'm just using it to as someone would use a car to get from point A to point B. There's nothing cheating about kind of making that more of a possibility when the alternatives would be, driving or maybe taking a bus if the bus is going where I need to go. So it's, another reason why we're pushing for kind of e-bikes and the affordability of that and secure storage, because it really can definitely replace a lot of car trips that most people, the trips that they take are under 3 or 5 miles. That's completely doable with an e-bike. With, a lot of people can do it with a bike, but if you can do it with a regular bike, that's great. Some people can't. So like, we want to make sure we're enabling more people to get out there and leave the car at home and bike or walk.
For sure. And as you said, like affordability is a big thing, and government should, state governments and federal governments should initiate programs that help people cut those costs of affordability. And I feel like one of the things that, again, the Colorado government is doing is giving out rebates to people, where monthly rebates where they can, which they can use to buy an e-bike.
Yeah, they're excellent. I bought one of my e-bikes with the rebate that when it first came out 2 years ago. And it's helped so many people to get into e-bikes where, again, like me, they couldn't do all of their errands with just a normal acoustic bike. But it's really helped. We've made national news with how effective and popular our e-bike rebates have been. Colorado now has another rebate. They're reducing vehicle miles. They are allowing people to get out and bike and all different kinds of weather. So it's only a positive, and especially when you consider how much car culture is subsidized. I mean, we're subsidizing the most ineffective or inefficient modes of travel by giving subsidizing driving, even to the point of these massive EV rebates, when we can really make a lot more difference, kind of building out our bike network, providing e-bikes, increasing the effectiveness and the frequency of public transit. A lot bigger bang for your buck with those.
That's an amazing initiative that the Colorado government has initiated, because it really helps. It helps a lot of people, and I've seen that with my own personal experiences here in Colorado. Can you explain what is Vision Zero?
So Vision Zero, I think, was originally like a Swedish program that basically said like we're going to try to get to zero traffic fatalities by the year 2030. And a lot of cities have adopted this Vision Zero, some more effective than others. I think it's a great policy to have. The problem is that we're not really following through on a lot of the hard decisions that need to be made. We're still very hesitant to take away street space from cars, even if it's just car storage. Like it's it again comes down to priorities. There's no way to make walking and biking and transit popular, more effective options if we keep subsidizing driving and keep the roads as they are, because the roads as they are, the wide, promoting speeds, promoted reckless driving, is keeping people from using alternative sources, and it's not helping drivers either. I mean, we've seen, the vast majority of people dying in traffic violence are other drivers and passengers, even though that as a percentage of people biking and walking are becoming more and more vulnerable to those bigger vehicles on the roads, higher speeds. We've seen that a difference since COVID kind of there were far fewer people on the roads, but we actually kind of, the percentage of traffic fatalities and injuries were going up because with emptier streets became more speeding, more reckless driving. I think people were just in a bad headspace during COVID, you know, everyone was kind of in a fog, trying to figure out what was next. But we really haven't seen it go down dramatically since the inception of Vision Zero. Said great vision, but we need more teeth in that.
Mm-hmm.
We need some vision action to really kind of make it happen. I think there are a lot of cities that are doing that. We've seen Hoboken, New Jersey, eliminate all of their traffic fatalities and serious injuries, I believe, by simply, I mean, they've done other things, but the most impactful is daylighting intersections. Kind of what I do with my cones around schools is preventing people from parking near crosswalks, which increases the visibility because, you know, if drivers can't see the pedestrians can't see the drivers, that's when bad things happen. But moving, you know, parked cars and those visibility hindrances away from the crosswalks, and also visually narrowing the roads, which promotes slower and more careful driving, has made a huge impact. You know, we've seen other cities like Austin, who has really kind of done some great land use things like recently with parking mandates, and also providing a great bike network. They've even had the Dutch come in and kind of like help them with that, and they're making some good strides. So it's, you know, I mean, there's a lot of cities around the United States that are doing good things. We just have a long way to go. I know
For sure. Yeah.
we're starting at a very, very high level of traffic fatalities and injuries. But again, they're preventable if we kind of we prioritize safety over speed and convenience of drivers.
For sure. And like in a way, we are breaking the cycle. No pun
Yeah,
intended, but like we are actually
yeah,
breaking a cycle with this. And sometimes breaking that cycle takes a long time. It takes baby steps. It takes other places to do it. And
sure.
then they later get initiated into our communities. One thing that our community, like the community of Colorado, is doing or is planning or is manifesting is Denver Moves Everyone 2050 initiative.
Mhm.
You yourself are involved in it in some ways. Can you share a little bit about that, and how do you believe it will be it could benefit our community in the future?
Sure. Well, and like Vision Zero, we've, you know, like these are great like plans for the future. We've had Blueprint Denver, which kind of says it's going to prioritize biking and walking and complete streets. And then we've had another update of that Blueprint Denver, and then Denver Moves. And they're all, like I said, there's great ideas in here, and there's that would be a fantastic future for Denver. It's just making those concrete steps. And we've done some great things here in Denver. You know, neighborhood bikeways, the protected bikeway, the protected bike lane along Broadway, which is really amazing to think that we have this great two-way bikeway along one of the major arterials in Denver. You know, that's going where people need to go. I mean, I personally like biking on small side streets to get where I'm going, but usually where I'm going is on an arterial, you know, so where the shops are, it's where the, you know, amenities are. So you can't just keep people walking and biking on these quiet side streets. We've got, you know, we have places to go, restaurants to go to. So like having this option on a street where, you know, you can just literally ride your bike right up to the front door and park your bike and go in. It's phenomenal, and I'm hoping we see more of that on our arterials, because those are our deadliest streets. Denver has what's called the high injury network, and it's 5% of our streets, which account for 50% of our road fatalities. So it's there's a lot of work to be done. Again, like, you know, fast speeds, prioritizing cars over, you know, people walking and riding bikes, kind of really doesn't help anyone, even drivers, because they're dying as well.
So is the Denver Moves Everyone 2050 initiative or vision, is it about making all pathways accessible and available for the bikers?
Well, I think it's there's some specifics for sure in there. And my involvement has just been giving feedback, like a lot of advocates, kind of saying like, this is what we need. And it's, again, a great kind of blueprint or a great roadmap to where we want to be. It's just actually getting the funding, getting the political will to get there. So yeah, I think the idea is to have a fully connected network. I mean, right now we have some great bikeways and bike lanes, but a lot of times you've got to go, a few blocks to get from one to the other. So it's not a complete network, which can really scare, like that. All it takes is one weak link in the chain where, I'm trying to show someone how to get somewhere and they don't like this one intersection because you feel really exposed and there's fast traffic. And people are like, nah, I don't think I'm going to do this. Like even 99% of the route can be pleasant. And if you get a couple of intersections that are really scary, you're not going to get people using a bike. They're going to want to prioritize their safety. And if they don't feel safe walking or biking or taking transit, they're not going to. So again, it's about giving people options. And we've had numerous neighborhood plans. My area was the East Area Plan, which has some great ideas for what needs to happen in our area. But there's no guarantee that we're ever going to do these things or if we're going to do them quickly. So it's more of like kind of this dream of where we would like to be. It's just we need to make some more concrete steps getting there. Like I said, Denver downtown has done great. We a few members of the Denver Bicycle Lobby and myself went on a bike ride around downtown Denver with members of the Dutch consulate when they were in town, and they were actually impressed. So, which I mean, like, it's a good thing, but also a bad thing. Like, like it's great that you were impressed and we're downtown, but that's really, beyond downtown, there's not a whole lot of bike facilities. But it also shows how much so many of our American cities need to improve. If Denver is getting those kind of accolades and we still have a lot of work to do, that means there's a lot of work to do in other cities as well.
Yes, I hope we get to a stage where we could be utilized as a blueprint for the other states to take action, because it has to
Absolutely.
start off from local government, it has to start off from state governments, and then it can branch off and be implemented on a
Yeah,
federal stage.
that's the dream, especially, it's so crucial here too with our air quality issues. We really need to take action because it's not healthy. We've been lucky the last couple of years, but we've just got so many emissions from cars and power plants, and then forest fires and everything that just kind of really kind of can affect a lot of people's health, especially, we've got schools right near highways and, people living right near major thoroughfares that get a lot of pollution. We really kind of need to think about, making some big changes for the benefit of everyone.
For sure. And like, even if you take care of all those things, you still have to be mindful around people who are driving on the roads, because
Mhm.
your your social media accounts are a big eye opener for a lot of people, because you have documented up videos, you have documented pictures where people are just breaking laws and driving recklessly and having no consequences.
Yeah.
Uh, can you talk a little bit about what you have seen on the roads and what you have seen on the streets in terms of people and how people just drive through it? And I'll also add up some of the videos and clips of
Sure.
within the description of this video, as you speak about it.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, it comes from a few different places, right? Like I said, for last century, we've been prioritizing vehicles. So I think, drivers kind of internalize that and they think they have this kind of idea of a superiority kind of view, that like the roads are for them. Everyone else is just kind of an
They're very
obstruction.
entitled with it.
Oh, yes. And, they'll they'll tell you it's because like we don't pay for the roads, even though like most people who ride bikes also have a car and they're paying registration and taxes and you know, we have as much right to the roads as anyone, and we're just trying to get from point A to point B. We're not trying to get in your way. We're just
Mm-hmm.
there. We're trying to go where we're going. But I think also, you know, just the design of our roads kind of prioritizes that. We see for the longest time we thought like giving people wider lanes, make it easier to turn, will make it safer. But the thing is, wider lanes makes people driving feel more comfortable speeding and distracted driving. And so this speeding buffer kind of ends up working against us, right? We've seen that like if you narrow the streets, people are going to drive slower. And so people around them walking, biking are going to be safer. They're also going to be safer as a driver, passenger, other drivers. It's it's easy. When I drive, it's sometimes hard to obey the speed limit because everyone else around you is going so fast. The road is built to feel comfortable going faster. We just reduced all the city streets to 20 miles an hour default speed limit, but no one drives 20 miles an hour because it doesn't, it doesn't feel right to drive 20 miles an hour. Because again, we've kind of designed our streets to say it's okay to go as fast as you feel comfortable going, with the fact that we really don't do enforcement. I'd rather not see police officers out there pulling people over, but I definitely approve of more camera enforcement in our area. I don't know if you've seen the video of a light that is right by my crossing guard station. And people just disregard it. And it's not even like they're running a red light. They're just not stopping. It's a light that was put up there to help kids get across the street safely. When people speed, and they don't have any, they don't get tickets, they don't pay a price. If they're running red lights, if they're rolling through stop signs, it's just going to compound. Like every year it gets a little bit worse, I went, 5 miles an hour over and nothing happened. I'm going to go 10, I'm going to do 15, I'm going to do 20. I had lived right off of a street that is a 30 mile an hour street. We have a digital speed readout display. And I can tell you it only goes up to 59 miles per hour. After 59 miles an hour, it's just double dashes. And I can tell you this because I see people doing well over 60 miles an hour. But again, and not to say that it's not the fault of people for speeding, because it's definitely a choice, right? But we know we're not doing anyone any favors by building these streets that promote speeding. There's a lot of room for improvement. We just did pass some new legislation that allows more red light cameras and speeding cameras. So we're hoping that starts taking place. And again, it doesn't need to be like big fees, but have the first one be a warning, let you know, oh, you ran this red light. The next time you'll get a ticket and it'll be this much, I think that's a great way to just kind of reinforce, no, we're all in the part of the community and we need to kind of behave. So again, there's numerous ways. I'd love to see our streets redesigned that are self-enforcing for, safer speeds and behaviors. But, we also know that, you really can't design your way around someone choosing to just ignore a red light, so you need some automated cameras to help out with that as well.
Sure, and it baffles me when sometimes you post up these videos and sometimes you post up these evidences on your social media, and then you get either a lot of hate for it, or a lot of people defending those drivers. And I'm like,
Yeah.
can you not just see it? You're not even on that road at that time, but it's still so well documented that this person completely disregarded the red
Yeah.
light, or completely disregarded their turn sign
Yeah.
and made up that turn, or saw this person biking and still chose to do it. And although they have done the mistake, why are
Yeah.
you defending all these people? And you get a lot of hate for that. How do you handle it?
I think there's a lot, how we see in social media, like this isolation bubble, people feel empowered to say whatever they want to say. hopefully that's not really who they are in real life. I don't know. But I see a lot of those correlations to people who drive. And again, it's like that little isolation bubble. It's me doing whatever I want because, you're in my way. I am what's important in my little bubble. And it's just the kind of this bizarre mentality that people kind of don't feel a part of their community, and don't like feel somehow separated or above. It's literally, again, I think most of us who ride a bike develops this kind of spidey sense or bikey sense, like, you kind of know,
Yeah.
like, oh, you're gonna kind of do, oh, yep, you're gonna do it, like, so you're always kind of aware of your surroundings. Not to say that you can avoid everything, which you definitely cannot. And I definitely try to, I don't want to scare people away from biking, but I want you to know that there are kind of things you need to look out for here, and try to also give ways of that you personally could advocate for changes, or that you can also kind of position yourself in the street, or what to look out for. I definitely don't think our safety should just be on our shoulders. We need our city to kind of help out with that. But yeah, I don't know what it is with
It's
people,
scary.
it
Reading some of
really
those
is.
comments and reading some of their feedback is just scary because, dude, you're not even in the fault. Why are you making this
I
like,
know,
like
I know.
about yourself? And how can you not see just a common sense up over there that this
Yeah,
person's trying to cross the street or this person's biking and the other person just completely recklessly went all through it and then sped away. It's
yeah.
not like they stopped, they sped away.
Yeah, and I think I tried to do a good job on my posts, like trying to explain what happened and what we could change to do, not just like being you jerk,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
sometimes I'm like, yes, you were a jerk for doing that. But yeah, it's an unfortunate part. Like, again, we've talked about mental health, and like it is a benefit for me not only to be out there, but to be advocating for others to be able to be out there. But it is, that's why I joined Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it, is to be a better advocate and get the word out. But there's that aspect of it too, that kind of and it does take a, it does pay a price. You pay a price for that. And there are times when I'm like, how can people, especially when it's directed around kids or whatever, like, how can people think that way? But I think it's also, in a very odd way, kind of helped me as well to kind of put things in perspective. And you just kind of have to think of, like, look at all these people that are supporting me and that also feel the same way. There's always going to be people that kind of criticize what you're doing. And maybe I just kind of need to look at that as a positive. Like, I'm affecting change. I'm sparking discussion. I'm making people rethink about, like, how our street space is divvied up. So, not to say that it doesn't take a toll, but I think in the bigger scheme, the bigger, grander scheme of things, it's and it's much a bigger benefit. And that goes for everything with biking, right? Like, there's dangers about any kind of mode of travel, but the positives far outweigh the negatives. So it's just, just pushing along and doing what you can to kind of change the perspective of people. And I think you can usually tell, like, if someone's just arguing to argue, or someone's just generally, like, confused. I mean, I think, I've had a few conversations where people start off very adversarial and then kind of go, okay, well, I get it. Yeah, okay, I understand your point. So, I mean, like, it's knowing too, like, some people you just block and go, okay, just go away. You're never going to change but there's also people, like, I don't want to block everyone who disagrees with me. That's not, like, affecting change. But I think it's knowing who is just, like, a lost cause and
That's a
moving
beautiful,
on.
beautiful way to put it into perspective. Because just recently, I remember that you posted something around some of the kiddos who were holding up some posters and doing some advocacy work around safe driving rules and stuff, and you even received backlash for that.
Yeah.
And I was like, these are because someone was mentioning, I'm gonna go on their face and I'm gonna honk and
Yeah.
some
Well,
obnoxious stuff like that. And I was like,
yeah. And again, those
literally
are just like,
kids.
yeah, I know. Yeah. So yeah, it was, we have an anti-idling campaign that's going around our school, and that's basically in the afternoons. And because we have this kind of small school in a neighborhood, it does get very congested. So a lot of people would come to school half an hour, 40 minutes before the release, and just sit in their car and idle while they're waiting to pick up their kids. And I think a lot of it is just, I mean, I'm sure I did it when I was, picking up my kids on particularly hot or cold days and just not even thinking about it, or, but it's something that we can all do better at. We can choose to, like, if it's hot outside and you're parked in the sun, then maybe go park somewhere in the shade, or get out of your car and go stand in the shade. So there's little things, like the vast majority of the parents who I've approached with this, and just asked them to turn off their car. They're like, oh yeah, I completely forgot, I'm sorry. Like, they're understanding it's habit, right? It's really hard to break a habit. But I had a few other people who were just like, no, it's too hot, it's too cold, or rolled their eyes at me. And then I had put, I was looking for more signs around the school. And then this woman, Sammy from the Denver Regional Air Quality Council, saw that and asked if I would like to participate in a pilot project an anti-idling project around the school. So of course I did. So she's been great, and putting out a lot of information, having parents sign like pledges to not idle. So we're going to do another count in a couple of weeks. We did a program count to see how many people were idling around the school. And then we've been doing this for several weeks, months now. And we'll take another count to see if we've kind of made any impact. But part of that was the kids drawing up these posters for, don't idle, save our air, yeah, I mean, it's all good stuff, and it literally helps everyone. You don't want to be idling for 40 minutes right next to kids playing, like 4-year-old kids, and some, and the young kids' playground feet from where they're playing. They've got, exhaust going right into their lungs. And again, it saves people gas money. It's, there's a lot of positives for that, and just like having that noise around. Like, when I first kind of really started pushing this, I had several parents walk through and go, it's so quiet today. I'm like, yes, it's because we don't have like eight vehicles, like, just constantly running. And it does, like, you don't even realize what it is, but it's just that kind of, the air gets heavier, and the noise is just amped up a little bit, and it's just less pleasant to be around. So I think it's working well. I think a lot of it is just making people aware of it, and kind of going, okay, yeah, I can do better. We can all do better, right? But yeah, the people that, or someone who said, like, yeah, I'm gonna go rev my engine outside of your school for 4 hours just to, like, okay, okay, dude, you've had that much
I read
time.
that and I was like, what? What are we
Right.
talking
And
about?
you have to kind of laugh at it at that point. It's just like, really, like, we can't just do this for the kids. And there's just a contingency of, like, people that think that, like, no, it's like, there's nothing wrong with the exhaust that comes out of cars, and it's bizarre. Like, that's why you don't, like, leave a car running inside a closed garage. Like, there are actual health benefits, or health impacts when you breathe too much emissions. And so, we're just trying to help everyone, trying to make the kids safer. Like, kids lungs are still developing well into their teens, so we need to do everything we can to kind of help them develop good lungs for the future.
100%, 100%. Must be a lot. Like, it just seems like a lot listening to all the noise that happens upon your Twitter page, especially the hateful one, because it's all good work, and people should see it as that way, and not just combat everywhere and anywhere. How does this advocacy work? How does social media work? How does that impact your own mental wellness? And what coping strategies do you employ on yourself to build resilience or to get over these challenges?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is just having the advocacy community, where you can kind of bounce things off and just, like, commiserate and go, like, come on, and, like, kind of laugh about it. Because, yeah, I mean, you have to kind of laugh about some stuff, or it's just like it gets overwhelming, right? But also celebrating the little wins, like, some of them are not so little, like the Broadway bike lane, but other things. I mean, just getting a new sign, a sign moved, or some bulb outs put in the neighborhood. like little things, we're going to celebrate every single one of those because it means like we're moving in the right direction. So you can't just forget about those. You have to celebrate them. You have to kind of look at what's really important. I mean, because you see, like in a lot of my Twitter posts, there's a lot of people that like that too, but then there's the people that take the time to trash on it, But like most people, when they're liking stuff, they're just like and they move on. It's the weirdos who kind of come in to say whatever just to get that exposure. And again, it's I've gotten better at it. It was when I first started. No one knew who I was, and I knew, I was just I didn't know what I was doing. But now that I have more of a following, it's definitely been a learning curve. Like I think I definitely used to take things more personally in the beginning because this was all kind of new to me. But you kind of just learn to take everything in perspective. It is harder when that kind of hate is directed towards kids. Like that takes it up a notch. And you're just like, come on. Shouldn't we all be wanting like healthier, safer kids? That seems like should be a pretty universal goal in life. But again, those aren't the real people. I mean, they are, but like those aren't the important people to listen to. I mean, it's important to understand the issues that people have so that you can kind of know how to combat those. But it's not real. It's not real life. It's social media.
No, thank you so much for all the work that you are doing, because I know as a therapist myself that it can take a lot of toll on your body and
Yeah.
a lot of toll on your mental health as well. So it's really inspiring, and it's really motivational to see the work that you are doing. For the listeners who might be listening right now, how would you say that how would you advise them to join these communities or join these initiatives or join these advocacy efforts? What can they do within their own communities? Would you say around either bike or
Yeah.
any other public initiative that could be of importance to them?
Well, I think, if you're outside, like I said, I've already kind of said the places in Denver, but like, anyone outside of Denver, just look for those local communities. I mean, the best way is just like get out and ride your bike and you meet other people and other people see you riding your bike, and that kind of inspires change as well. But yeah, I think just kind of if you have the time to get involved in some of these, programs to increase density, to better land use, to build sidewalks, bike infrastructure, take the time to kind of leave positive comments, suggestions. But I think it is really important to kind of find some people that, are like-minded. Not to just keep yourself in a bubble, because it's important to kind of, I mean, we get to hear from the other side plenty, but to like have that support network, I think it's very important, which is smaller and smaller. I mean, it's harder in smaller towns, but there's always some people that you can find. So I would just, Google different things or kind of like take note on social media, like who's posting the positive comments about some, new bike lane planned or whatever, and contact them. Like there is power in numbers, whether it be like in advocacy or just riding a bike on the street. Go for group rides. That is the best way to kind of like to get out there and get comfortable on your streets, kind of meet people. It's really, it will expand your horizons as far as like your ways of getting places. I went on a lot of group rides with Avi Stopper of Denver Bike Streets, who I first started advocating with, and was making up a map of like slow side streets that were more comfortable to ride on. And that allowed me to not only meet people, but to figure out like the different routes to get to places. And now I know how to get there. Well, I can go here and here, your network, your range gets so much wider then, and then it opens up more possibilities for different places that you can go. But yeah, the support network is important to find, and just to be able to ask questions and, to get together and talk about things and show support for projects in your community that will help with safety around schools, around parks, add bike parking. Every little thing helps, and every little thing should be celebrated.
feel like it could be like people don't necessarily have to do it just around biking. They can do it around any other things that
Absolutely.
could benefit their communities as well, because this is all getting connected up within your community. And that's
Mhm.
an extremely important aspect of a healthier future, as well as your own healthy mental health.
Right.
So thank you so much, Nicole, for joining me today. It was a pleasure talking with you, and was really insightful to talk to you on different topics and the projects that you've been working on. Doing the work that you're doing is extremely inspiring. So I'm really, really thankful of you. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's been really wonderful. It's not only good to get the word out, but it's also good to just kind of be introspective and kind of think like, why do I do this? And like kind of like really kind of go, oh yeah, that does make a difference sometimes. So it's helpful too. Like it's just getting the word out and like letting people know that they have options. And if they are struggling with, either the financial costs of a car or the stress of driving, to know that there are options. It may take a little bit longer to find them, but there are ways, and there are people out there that are willing to help you.
Definitely, and I'm glad that it came out as that way for you as well, because that's basically the goal and the vision of this podcast is to inspire stories like yours and the advocacy work, so that we could build up more resiliency, and then in return inspire the younger generation to take part and be part of their community and take important actions like these, and be a little selfless in a lot of different ways, because a lot of work that you are doing is very selfless. So
Yeah,
thank
although it helps me too. Like, yeah, I mean, it's good to like want things for your community, but like it benefits everyone. Like
everyone.
I want everyone to see benefits from what I'm doing and what we can be doing more in the future.
It creates a ripple effect. It creates a
Yeah,
ripple
it
effect.
does. It really
Yeah,
does.
definitely. Thank you so much. I hope that we get to connect again and hopefully
Yes.
do a part two around this sometime in the future. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, yeah, and thanks for doing what you're doing. It's definitely an important program and topic to be discussing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.